Nearby.com, India's #1 discovery and transaction platform. Known for his leadership skills, his witty retorts on social media, and not mincing words, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ankur Warikoo, and he'll be telling us a thing or two about the Indian consumer.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Ankur. I run this company called Nearby.com. My job here is to share my experiences that I've had running internet companies, B2C companies for the last 10 years. There's a lot that is very different about the Indian consumer than what we imagine it to be, and there's a lot that can be spoken about. I'm going to distill it to possibly the 3 most important things that as a marketer I've identified which are critical to execute an internet company, largely a B2C company, in the Indian environment. So number 1, everything that a consumer does into their day-to-day life when it comes to a transaction with a brand is, in my opinion, the interaction or the intersection of how they think about their time and how they think about their money. Time and money. And think of it like a 2x2 matrix. You either have a lot of time or not. You either have a lot of money or not. And it's important for you to recognize where is it that your customer audience really lies in either of these 3 quadrants. If you were to just, at a broad level, think of India, the reality is that we continue to be a time-rich and a money-poor country. We are a time-rich and a money-poor country. And if you start thinking about how that impacts transactions and decision-making at a consumer level, it suddenly starts making a lot of sense. Because here is why people window shop endlessly in malls in the Indian environment. Because we have a lot more time, and it's important for us to save money whenever we're spending it. So we will actually go and click on multiple sites when we are online. We'll actually go and spend time visiting several shops. We'll actually travel distances to save money. We will start to ignore how much valuable our time is, because at the basic level, money is the key ingredient for how we drive our purchasing decisions. That's completely opposite to how the West behaves. If you think of an economy like the US, it's a time-poor and a money-rich economy. So they are more than willing to pay for same-day shipment by Amazon. They're more than willing to pay for fast streaming. They're more than willing to pay for great customer service. They're more than willing to pay faster things which save their time, and they are ready to trade their time with their money. Now here's the interesting bit. It's very easy for someone to say, oh, you know what, the customer is a time-rich and a money-poor customer, or a time-rich or a time-poor and money customer. The interesting observation that I've had running Nearby now is consumers operate and fluctuate between these quadrants, and they do that every single time, every single day. The worst mistake we can make as marketeers is to bucket our customers and assume that that's where they stay forever. Because they don't. Every single time, the nuance and the context of where they are will change their decision. For example, if you're going out for drinks with your friends at the end of office hours, it's quite likely you don't care 2 hoots about what your friends want. And what you care about is, let's just go to a really nice place that's the cheapest, that gets me the beer and the snacks, that it's basic, and it just needs to be nice music and so on. So it's possible that you will behave as someone who's a quintessential window shopper online. You'll go on Nearby, you'll find the deals that are best suited for you, you'll scan all the pubs that are there in the vicinity, you might go to some competition, you might call the merchant, you'll actually invest time in just trying to minimize and save money, because you know that that is something that is more important for you at that particular context. But that same customer, if now has to go for a dinner with family, will behave completely different. They're not going to make the same choices. They're possibly going to be willing to spend a lot more money to get guaranteed confidence and trust and standard service. They're possibly willing to spend a lot more money for having a great experience, even if it's outside of their pocket. That same customer, if they were to send their parents for a vacation, will be behaving absolutely different from what you would expect. Because that same customer will now be willing to compromise on a lot of expensive things because it's their parents that he or she is talking about. So you don't want to F around with that experience. You don't want your parents to be like, oh my God, this was such a horrible experience. Our son or daughter is just exactly how we imagine him to be. But it's almost like, this is unparalleled 5-star, 7-star experience. Mom and dad, I want you to finally think of me as the right son and daughter that you always wanted. And you will go out of your way to completely change your quadrant. As marketeers, it's amazing how many times we make this single mistake of bucketing our customers and then targeting them with the same kind of communication, the same kind of even mediums, without complete observation or awareness of how their context could or possibly has completely changed. So the next time you're thinking of bucketing your customers, try and see how the intersection of time and money is influencing how they behave. Next, particularly in the Indian environment, the operating word of trust. We are, by and large, a trust-deficient country. We don't trust people. We're always thinking of what is it in for the other person, why is he or she being nice to me, why are they being so generous. There is a trap, dal mein kuch kala hai. We have grown up on that shit. And we have grown up to believe that someone has an inherent motive behind all their actions. So when consumers are operating in a trust-deficient economy context, and you come across as possibly, as say Lizzie was mentioning in Just Money, it's a very different approach where you start trusting people to begin with. They lose their shit. Consumers do not know how to react if the first protocol is trust and not, I will not trust you. So I'll give you a simple example. This is one of my favorite examples of all times. Nearby used to be Groupon at some point of time. 3 years back, we were Groupon India and so on. So at that point of time, we used to sell products. And there was this one deal that we were running on a pair of Tommy Hilfiger shots. It was a great deal. It was possibly end of season sale or something like that. So what would usually cost, say, $2,000 if we were selling it for, say, $999. And there was a customer who called in the customer care department one day, livid, like shouting, abusing, calling out names. And we were like, what happened? And he was like, you said it's $9.99 for a pair of shorts, but you just sent me one. Stay with me because some of you may have not got what I said. He was livid because for $9.99, what he was expecting were 2 shots, and we sent him 1. And we, of course, tried to be very understanding about it. We're like, look, in English, a pair of shorts just means 1. It's just like a pair of jeans, like a pair of spectacles. He wouldn't get it. He doesn't need to. Like, forget what the, let's say, unreasonable approach was and so on and so forth. I think I kind of irked him when, towards the closure, I just sent him a link to dictionary.com. Because that's when he completely lost it. Or you US companies, you come to India, you think we should treat your language as ours and so on and so forth. We settled that, but here's what we did. We're like, look, this is a live case. We can't just ignore someone because this is an individual who said he doesn't get what a pair of shorts is. So why don't we be very, very, very clear? Whenever we're now talking about a pair of shorts, in bracket, we'll always write 1 piece. Let's just make it supremely clear for those customers and not just mess around with them. So everywhere on Groupon now, it was, hey, pair bracket 1 piece of shorts, pair bracket 1 piece of XYZ. So one fine day, completely different context, we're working with India's largest eye hospital for laser eye surgery. It was something that they wanted to do. They thought that laser eye surgery has moved from being a medical treatment to more of a discretionary spend, and they wanted to see what a platform like Groupon could do. So we went all overboard. We were like, hey, get your pair of eyes completely treated, and now you can live your life without spectacles, and so on and so forth. And we get this customer calling in saying, hey, I noticed that whenever you mention pair, it's always 1 piece. So when you say pair of eyes, is it for both the eyes or just the first eye? And that's how they're thinking about it. It stems from a layer of mistrust. It stems from a layer of how we have grown up as a culture where everything starts from mistrust. It doesn't start from trust. And you have to now recognize that that's the reason why all of our advertising mostly is just completely over the top. Because it's pointless for any marketer to be selling product features anymore when the fundamental of trust has not been established. So there's a reason why when you're selling house paint on television, you're not talking about the fact that that house paint is lead-free, that it's actually eco-friendly or anything like that. You're talking about shit that has nothing to do with house paint. You're talking about how your neighbors will start loving you, how your daughter will get married, how your dog will love you more, how you'll make more money, and you'll have all the respect of your neighborhood if you use this house paint. And that's just ridiculous, but it works. It works because what you're trying to do as a brand is win over the customer in a brand environment which is not starting with trust. And that's a very fundamental realization, at least I've had as a marketer over these years, that when you talk about a product, it is necessary that you start to understand the context of the consumer, which could very well be starting with mistrust. And if it is starting with mistrust, you will not do any favor to that customer by talking about specific product features. That's not why they're going to buy into it. You have to talk about what is the experience and what is it that they start with. Kunal Shah had a really good example around that in a completely different context of employees. So he found, and we started to use that, and it's worked like a miracle. He found out that a lot of people, particularly in Bangalore, would get job offers from, say, Freecharge, back when he experimented with that, and then not show up on the first day. And I'm sure a lot of you have experienced it, if not in your department, then in your organization as such. People would accept the job offer, they say, yeah, 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 rah, 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 and then not show up on the first day. And yes, you can try and solve that by putting in principles and layers and whatnot, but he had this genius of an idea that how do I solve this using trust as a fundamental, because that's not what most people are used to. So here's what he did, which is quite crazy. As soon as the candidate accepted the job offer, he sent across a MacBook laptop to that individual saying, welcome to Freecharge. We're just waiting for you. Okay? That individual has not joined, and now a laptop has arrived at their home saying, welcome to Freecharge, we're waiting for you. People lose their shit. Like, it's like they start crying. Like, no one's trusted me this much, ever, not even my parents. Like, suddenly have arrived in life. And what he found, lo and behold, is that it just declined. It just completely, well, I wouldn't say completely vanished. I don't have the exact metrics of what he did. But we've been doing it at Nearby because we realized it, particularly again in the tech industry, maybe because the tech people are in demand and they kind of chase and so on and so forth. You start shipping. So we said, on the day that you accept the job offer, we send them the business card and we send them the laptop, which is again a Mac. And there are people who then start, oh my God, I received this, I didn't expect it, am I supposed to? This was the wrong shipment, am I the right recipient? They just completely don't know how to react if people start trusting you. That is the power of communication when you operate in a world that is of mistrust. So what I'm saying is that this could perhaps be the golden wisdom that's shared, which most people know, but very rarely give appreciation towards, which is, if you start to behave knowing that consumers don't trust you, but start to generate trust in quantums, your communication will absolutely stand out in a way that never has. The third, and perhaps the most important as marketeers, and let me start with that question. How many of you here are middle class? Okay, I'm going to use the word, fuck you. Okay, again, fuck you. Because here's the shit that all of us keep drinking. We think that we are middle class. Here's the true definition of middle class in India. Anyone who earns between 8 to 12,000 rupees per month is middle class, not you. So don't fuck around with your mind thinking, oh, I'm middle class, so I'm the best representation of the middle class consumer base that I'm speaking to. You're not. Nowhere close. You're just middle class because you're comparing yourself to Mukesh Ambani and the 3 lakh gift or whatever everyone got. Like, God, I'm just so far away. But on all fundamental principles and statistical ground, you are rich. And that's your biggest takeaway of engagement. You are rich. You leave today knowing that you are not a representation of what is the core consumer market outside. In fact, you have no idea how most people behave because you think, and that's the biggest mistake marketeers make, is the choices that I make as a marketeer and the way that I look at the world is representative of how the consumer base is. And that's not true. Show of hands again. How many of you here have a smartphone? Right? Let's indulge, okay? Obvious question, right? These are full marks to pakka hi milenge. Just keep your hands up. How many of you have a smartphone? Great. How many of you of that is an Android smartphone? Awesome. How many of you then have an Android smartphone with a prepaid connection? Oh, suddenly the hands are down. Yeah. Let's look at these people. How many of you have an Android smartphone with a prepaid connection? Great. No more than 7%. What is the Android smartphone prepaid connection penetration in this country? Oh, not 90. It's close to about 78%. If you don't have an Android prepaid smartphone, you do not know what 78% of this country goes through. Blanket. You have no idea what it is to run out of balance when you're watching YouTube. You have no idea what it is to run out of balance when you are on Hotstar. You have no idea what it is to run out of balance when you are on TikTok. You have no idea. In fact, how many of you know TikTok? How many of you have ShareChat? How many of you have ShareChat? How many of you have heard of ShareChat? Why don't you have it? Because do you know how many people in India have it? And do you think that, oh, those are not my customers? Fuck you, they are. You just don't know. You just don't think you're on this moral high ground where you're defining the world from your own perspective and worldview, completely dismissive of what actual India is. And I'm not talking about tier 2, tier 3. I'm talking about Bangalore. I'm talking about Bombay. I'm talking about Delhi. And it's just so easy for marketers to brush this and say that this is who the consumer base is because this is who we are. Anyone here from PVR? Worked in PVR? Worked in the cinema exhibition industry? Okay, not. So let's have this one. I just want to be cognizant of my time. Oh, there is no time. Oh, awesome. I have 15 minutes, so then 10 minutes for conversation. All of you have heard of PVR? Great. All of you pass. Wonderful. What is the share of online ticket sales in PVR's total ticket sales? What percentage of PVR's ticket sales comes from online channels, whether through PVR or Paytm or Book My Show or equivalent? Numbers. Okay, let's do opinion polls. 0 to 25%, show of hands. 0 to 25%, show of hands. Okay, 25 to 50. 50 to 75. 75 plus? Okay, great. When was the last time, and oh, well, not the last time. How many of you have bought an offline movie ticket in the last 3 months from PVR? Okay, show of hands. Do the other people even relate to this question? Do you relate to this question? Like, who goes and buys an offline movie ticket at PVR? Like, who does that shit? Because Book My Show and Ashish has really worked hard to get it out, and Vijay is kicking his ass, and no, he's also doing it his bit, Paytm. Like, everyone's really working hard to help you book a ticket online. So why would you even do that? What percentage of PVR's ticket sales comes from online channels? The answer is 46%, roundabout. Less than half. Less than half. So as smart marketers, entrepreneurs, people from the startup community, if I were to throw a question at you and say, hey, let's design the next movie ticketing experience for the Indian consumer, it's quite likely you will start with your own app. When 54% of people don't even fucking care about you. What percentage of the offline ticket sales of PVR happens in the last half an hour before the show starts? What percentage of the offline ticket sales of PVR happens in the last half an hour before the show starts? 0 to 25? 25 to 50? 50 to 75? 75 plus? 89%. 89%. So now, close your eyes and imagine this. You're in a mall, okay? You're this intellectual, been to IIM Lucknow and shit, like you know the world, you of course know your figures, like everything is done. Of course not mocking, I'm from ISB, the better school, so I know. So everything is done. Yeah. And you're in this mall and you are completely judging those three guys who are clearly just whiling away their time. They're just walking. They're doing nothing, like no shit, and they're just walking. And then they reach to the PVR counter. And they ask a question that you most likely have never asked in the last 1 year. Kya chal raha hai? So now you know why PVR even takes the effort of printing those paper pamphlets. Like, who cares about those paper pamphlets? 54%. So then they read it, and they're like, oh, there's a 12:40 show, I have 12:30, and then they turn around and ask their friends, Dekhni hai? And that is the decision, right at that point of time. It's impulse, it's real time, it's last minute, and it's driving more than half of the largest multiplex chain's revenue in this country. I am convinced that as marketers, if you were to start thinking about people who go to PVR and people or this and that, you will be like, people behave the way that I do. I want to go and watch Robot 2.0, whatever it is, and I will book my tickets online. And yes, that happens, but it doesn't happen because it's a natural way of doing it. It happens because that's the only way you're guaranteed a seat. But on all occasions where you don't have to care about that, people's default in this country is to just walk up and buy. And that is very different from how you are either trained, or you live your life, or your assumption and definition of the Indian consumer. So these three things, and I think it makes a world of difference when you start to observe the Indian consumer in ways that are not by your own lens. I read this beautiful quote that if you're wearing red glasses, then red flags don't appear as red flags, they appear as flags. And it's just such a powerful quote. Because if you have the tint of red, then you will not look at the things that you ought to be disturbed by, you'll just treat them as normal. Time and money intersection, the defining reason how consumers make consumer choices, the fact that we remain and will possibly remain a trust-efficient country where everyone is starting with a layer of mistrust and are not used to be trusted. And third is stop thinking that you are, in any shape and form, a reflection of your normal audience curve. It's quite likely you're very far away from what they experience. With these three things in mind, just ask yourself this question: what is the one change that I could make in my communication strategy, in my marketing strategy, in the way that I approach my customers today? And just give them that benefit of doubt that maybe you've not understood them in the way that they always wanted to. Thank you.